Welcome to Spotlight. I'm Rian Keating. Today we're at the production company where they're currently rehearsing The Road to Hollywood, which is a takeoff on the Bob Hope, Bing Crosby musicals of the 30s. We're sitting with the lady who plays Dorothy Lamour, and the word about town is that she's outrageous. Please welcome Bebe Neuwirth.
Thank you.
Bebe, welcome. I guess the first question is, where's your sarong?
Well, I would like to say it's not quite so much a takeoff, I don't think, on those movies as sort of a loving look and somewhat of a reproduction in style of some of that. And I'm not really playing Dorothy Lamour, but if Dorothy Lamour was in this play, I have her part. I beat her out for the part.
How do you find the production?
Oh, it's very much fun. It's a lot of fun. It's a very nice group of people, really nice energy on stage and around, and it's a very positive, nice thing. It's a lot of fun to do. Because it's not a caustic or sarcastic poking fun at those movies. That's also the thing. It's not quite a takeoff. It's really being nice about it and really enjoying them and trying to duplicate a certain feeling that they had. You know, it was like they say it was sort of a party that Bob Hope and Bing Crosby were hosting, and Dorothy Lamour was the mass mistress of ceremonies. It's sort of a party. And that's the energy of it.
This is being done off-Broadway, and it certainly seems to have a happy ending for everyone involved. Do you think that works of this sort are better in off-Broadway houses, or Broadway might be too expanded a setting for them?
I don't know. It's a very intimate show. I think that maybe if it was, I think that it certainly could be done on Broadway. I think anything could be done on Broadway if it was produced properly and with a very knowledgeable and tasteful hand. I think the only danger of this being done on Broadway is that if it was put into the wrong hands, they might start adding too many sequins. I mean that literally and figuratively. You know, it doesn't need that stuff because it has such heart that it needs a nice small house and just, you know, what we give it, and it doesn't need a lot of excess tchotchkes.
You've appeared on Broadway as well, from, well, certainly in a chorus line and dancing, as well as Little Me. Do you find that working off-Broadway, the situation is a lot more relaxed? There's not as much pressure?
It's very different. There are different pressures. I don't know. This is only the second production I've taken from the beginning. In other words, when I went into chorus line and dancing, I was a replacement along the way. Now, Little Me, I started from the beginning, and this I started from the beginning, and there are different pressures. It's again, it's a much bigger scale on Broadway, and different pressures. This is little stuff, and who knows if something is going to get done in time, and you might just have to wing it. It's a very interesting. It's an interesting process.
You had started dancing at 5 after seeing the Nutcracker at 4.
Yes.
And what were your first impressions of the Nutcracker?
I don't remember. I really don't, but I know there are some things about it. I can't hear the music now without breaking into tears. It's pretty embarrassing if it's music in a grocery store. But, you know, I don't know what it was about it that made me, that sparked me or touched something inside me. I don't know exactly what that was. It might have been the sound of the toe shoes hitting the floor, which is a sound that feels very much like home to me for some reason. Or it might have been the music. It might have been the lovely shapes. I don't know. Maybe just the whole feeling of the theater and the music. I don't know.
Did you find 5 that was the right age for you to start?
Well, it turned out okay for me. I know there are some people who start very early like that and lose interest around 8 or 9 or 10 or something, and then they quit, never to go back. And I speak to them as older people, and they say, well, maybe if I had stuck with it a long time ago. So it's a very individual thing. I remember I was saying to someone in the dressing room earlier today that it did cross my mind when I was 8 to stop dancing. And then when I said, one more year, it never occurred to me again after that. I guess maybe that's the hump that some children go through at that time. I know in Russia, I don't think they start the ballet dancers at the Bolshoi until they're about 8. That has to do with also their, where their bones are. physically their makeup if they can handle.
Did you find that there were any drawbacks of starting that early in terms of support from your family or from your peers?
I never had any trouble with support from my family. They always were and are terrifically supportive. And anything my brother and I have one brother, wanted to do, they were right there for us and made sure that we could do it in the best way possible. Never a stage mother. Never a stage mother. But always, let's ballet? Fine, let's find the best possible class for you. Now, there is something, I think, when anyone starts out in a career, whether they're an athlete or if they are in the theater or if they're a dancer or something that takes them out of what the main course of the kids are doing, there's a certain... they're separated from them, and there's nothing that can be done about that. There's a part of their childhood is lost. And that's the way it is. You can't get around that because the demands of the profession are so high. If you're going to be a dancer, you must go to class, and you must perform as much as you can. If you want to grow up to be a good performer, the only way to do it is to be on stage. That means you miss going to dances. That means you miss cheerleading practice. Maybe you can't go to a soccer game because so you miss stuff. You do, but which do you want? And then that's up to the individual.
Do you find that hard to deal with now? Do you feel that you've missed part of your adolescence?
Oh, yeah.
If you could go back, would you change it?
No.
Or
No, I think that I made the right choice. I feel that I do. And I'm not saying that it was easy, because it wasn't. There was a lot of pain in that. And and I'm talking even as an amateur. It's not as if I was in New York City doing this. I was in Princeton, New Jersey, in a regional company there. And there was something that was gone. But because it's what I love so much, and because I am able to work at it, because it's such a great... it means more to me than anything to be dancing, so it's worth it.
Because your dancing schedule at that time was very rigorous, how did you find your grades in school? Were you able to balance the two? Or shouldn't I ask this question?
Well, they suffered. Of course they suffered. And it was very frustrating to my teachers. In fact, after a while, this was not in grammar school. As soon as I hit high school, the teachers would literally come to me and say, "You're so smart. Would you please do some homework?" Please. But I didn't want to work. I wasn't going to put my energy there. It coincided with everyone's teenage rebellion. That rebellious period you go through. Well, I had that plus the fact that I was going to be in show business, so I don't need algebra. Who needs that?
When you graduated from high school, you said you're not going to college, you're going into show business, and your parents seem to be very supportive of that.
Well, that was a tough part, because as I said to you earlier, I come from a very intellectually oriented family. My father graduated from Princeton and my brother from Harvard, and my mother graduated from the female version of Rutgers. And so it was a little bit tough for them to swallow the not going to college and just going right into show business or trying to do... I wanted to quit and just go live in New York City by myself at 17 years of age and start going to open calls. Well, we hit on a happy medium, which was to go to an arts college. I said, I'm not going to go to, a liberal arts college that has modern dance classes in their gym. I'm not going to do that. So I went to Juilliard. And then I left Juilliard after a year and said, okay. And I think that was a very good thing for me to do, because I was young and I did need a structured environment, and New York City is very different from Princeton, New Jersey. It's extremely different. And I needed that structured environment. There was a place for me to go to every day, and I had some wonderful teachers there. And then as I was there, I got a feel of the city. I got used to living in New York and understanding what that was a little bit better, so that after a year, when I said, okay, enough of the structure and enough of not being able to go to auditions, now I'm going to do it. I'm going to tackle it now. I think it was a good starting point. I was choosing between Juilliard and Purchase, and I picked Juilliard because it was in the city.
You had made your professional debut in A Chorus Line?
Yes.
And how would you describe that audition? How realistic is what we see in the show?
You mean compared to the way it is in the show?
Right.
Well, it's the same as in the show, because at that time, I don't know what they're doing with the auditions now. This was in 1978. We stood in groups of 10 on the line and stepped forward, said our name, age, where we were from, and then did a double pirouette and a time step, which is kind of similar to what happens in the show. But from there, that's where, they didn't go into in-depth interviews and, try to drag out all these things from our childhood from us. I auditioned 3 times before I got it. The first time, I think I had just turned 18, and I got cut after that. And then the next time was about 6 months later, maybe, and I was still at Juilliard, and I got cut a little bit later in the process. And then the third time, in show business, the trade paper, it said, only those who had not previously auditioned, please apply. And I went, I don't know if they're going to remember me, and they can kick me out if they want to, but I'm going to go, and I'm going to get this job. And that was when I got it.
Now, you'd played both Sheila and Cassie,
Yes.
who are, one's close to 30 and one's over 30.
32.
32, right.
Yes.
And they're both very pivotal roles in that show.
Yeah.
What did you rely on for your to color your performance? Because certainly you hadn't had the experience either of them had.
No, but I'm very similar to both those people. Cassie and Sheila, I think they have very similar qualities. I think one, it's funny, I was talking about this to someone last night. One just has very strong defenses up, and the other one has just her defenses are down, and she's extremely vulnerable. Now, depending on who's playing it, sometimes Sheila is a good dancer and sometimes she's not. It doesn't really matter. She should be adequate because she's worked a lot and she's been around the block. But Sheila is very similar to who I am when my defenses are up. I get very funny in a very sarcastic way. I think I'm funny. A lot of people go, I'll be in the other room, But, and, the way she uses herself and her physical presence is something that I relate to and something that I do myself. Cassie, I think I was a little bit too young to play Cassie as well as I could, certainly now. I mean, now I could really do a number with Cassie. But then I was just a little bit too young. And what's interesting is that you would think that it would be easier maybe to play Cassie when you're younger because she's so vulnerable and out there and I need a job. But the younger people, it's when you're young that your defense is not till you get a little older. When you're stronger enough inside that you can just, say, let go of my defenses and I'll just be there for a person or for a job or for an audition. And that's what takes a little bit more maturity. I did a fine Sheila. Cassie was fine for my age, but now I think it would be much better.
Well, one thing Carol Shelley had said in an interview was that if she could go back into The Elephant Man, she would do it very differently. If you could go back and play Cassie, how do you think your performance would change?
I don't know. Well, the dance would be a lot better because I'm a much stronger dancer now than I used to be. I think in the same way as I was just saying about the defenses, I don't think I'm as scared to be vulnerable now as I used to be when I was 21. I'm not much more than 21. But
Let's talk about that for a minute, because certainly in this business, it's more the rule to be defensive. And how are you able to go through it, through the rejection without...
There is a lot of rejection, so you build up whatever you have to, whatever that individual has to build up in order to deal with that rejection. different people have different ways of doing it. I've certainly gone through 100 different ways. But there's always, and I don't believe that there's anybody who doesn't come out of some auditions and finally, once they can say whatever they want to their friends in the hallway after the audition, but I know that everybody cries when they get home from certain auditions. Some that's another thing, but I know I have gone and, you know, flipped something off to a friend, then gone into the ladies' room and wailed. How can you not? And I don't think it's healthy for you to ignore that in you. I think that you have to say, yes, I am very hurt that I didn't get that. And, I mean, that's something that you're feeling, so you have to accept it. And then get over it and get on with it. Some people don't, and then, you know, maybe they drop out of the business. But if you want to stay in, that's in the nature of the beast.
When you're in a Broadway situation as a showgirl and or whatever, or a chorus girl, or however you want to term it, people have a very set impression of what you're like. And when you're dealing with your personal relationships, how do you get over that? How do you break through that barrier?
Well, I don't know. Different people bring different things out of you. Some people you can trust with, who, you know, with yourself, and others you can't. I don't really know how to answer that. If you're on stage and you're doing a part, that's what you're doing. You're doing a part. Now maybe it comes from a part of you that you draw that section of you out and put it foremost for that character, but that has nothing to do with the whole picture when you're off stage. That's just a part of you.
Do you find it hard to break through that?
No.
You're going to be getting married soon.
Yeah.
So how did that evolve?
Well, we knew each other. I was doing Upstairs at O'Neill's, a comedy cabaret review, and my fiancé was working at the restaurant. And it's actually, has very much to do with that, because he saw, he was tending the bar upstairs, and he just saw this person going in and going on stage and doing, this character that I did for a lot of the show on stage, and didn't really see me that much. So he made up some ideas about who I was, and we just kind of knew each other. And then it wasn't until we bumped into each other on the street, because we were neighbors, and I would be without the makeup or costume or anything, and I was, like a 12-year-old. Dropped 10 years, and then we just started seeing each other.
Well, that sounds terrific.
Also, he's an actor, a very good actor, and he, so it's not foreign to him what that is. He knows about that.
Do you think it's going to be easy to have a show business marriage, so to speak?
You got me.
One thing Gwen Verdon had said in an interview, that when you're in this business now, you have to be a triple threat, because budgets are tighter and you can't have a chorus and a
singing chorus and
a dancing chorus. How true do you find that to be?
Well, I have felt at a couple of auditions that it was because I stayed on pitch a little better than some of the other dancers, why they chose me. I think that when I auditioned for Little Me, they had the dancers and the singers there all together, and we only danced maybe 2 or 3 times. And then the entire rest of the 37 hours of auditioning we had was singing. And you are called upon to do everything. You really must be able to do everything. And I have friends who say to me, maybe they've been doing a show where they only have to dance, like a friend who was in dancing for a very long time on the road says, well, before I start doing more auditioning, I really have to get to singing class. Whereas maybe, I don't know, but maybe before, and I have the feeling this is true, you didn't really matter that much how well you sang. If you could carry a tune, it was one thing. But now they really listen hard to you in that part of your audition. There's not much reading that you have to do for chorus parts in shows. We read a little bit for Little Me, but not too much.
How did you find that experience, bringing back a show that had been done previously?
Well, it was, as Neil Simon said, it was more a revised revival. It really wasn't the same show. It was before it was Sid Caesar doing 97 roles, and this time it was Jimmy Coco and Victor Garber dividing the roles and doing them separately. And there was a lot of differences in it. It was interesting. It was very interesting to be around Neil Simon for that much amount of time and see the way that whole process worked. It was, and we had all different dances because this time we had Peter Gennaro instead of Bob Fosse. Mm-hmm. So I had the honor of working with Peter Gennaro, who was just a gentleman in every sense of the word. He is the most wonderful man to work with. Not that Bob Fosse is. Right. Bob Fosse is really, and I actually, Bob Fosse came in and put in an old number to it. One of the numbers wasn't working properly, or so the powers that were said. So they brought Mr. Fosse back in, and that was also sensational to work with him.
You had also done dancing, which was choreographed by Fosse.
Dancing I did right after Little Me.
Right. How would you compare the styles of choreography between Gennaro and Fosse?
Well, very, very different. Very different. But something that Peter said to us when Fosse came in that day, he said, well, now you listen to him because he was the one who taught me. You know, he gave him his first break or something like that. It's a very different thing. I feel really good doing Fosse stuff. It feels good on you. Different styles of choreography don't. Sometimes there's something, maybe it's the way a person is built or a way they feel music in their body, and something, it's a very individual thing. It just feels good on me, and I really love doing that show a lot.
Did you feel that Michael Bennett's work is a direct descendant of Bob Fosse, or do you feel there were other influences?
No. He's very different from Fosse. He's very much, as I understand, I could be wrong on this, I think he is more of the Michael Kidd ilk, much more athletic, much more down into the ground. Mm-hmm. And Fosse is very lyrical and sensual and very isolated, whereas Bennett is much more down into the ground.
Well, you're not the first person to say that, so I'm sure that's very accurate. Yeah. How did you find dancing the music in the mirror and singing at the same time?
God. And it was very hard for me to finally get the dance in my body, as it, so to speak. It's, you know, you learn choreography and you do it and you rehearse it, and then after a while you have it inside of you. I mean, you just have it and you do it. And it took a while for that because it was something very different from what I was used to, because I'm a ballet dancer basically, and because Michael's stuff was real down and athletic and into the ground, I kept wanting to pull up, you know? And it was hard. It's a little bit of an awkward dance in places for a dancer like myself. And but then, as I say, once I got the dance into my body and knew it well enough and was able to breathe in it and not be afraid of breathing, most people are scared to breathe in there, I was able to make it my own. And then it's a solo, you have to make it your own. Nobody is Donna McKechnie. You know, she dances in a very different way. It has a very different thing, so that feels great on her. When I had first taken over the role, we were in Chicago, and Michael Bennett came in to work with our company, and he had Bob Avian with him. And then at the end of the day, after everyone had left, he and I worked together, and we did the dance together. He was trying to get me to get the music inside me more, and we were dancing side by side. It was just so exciting. But you know, while we were dancing, I would look and see him, and there was something about the way that he got into the floor, and the way he moved in it. You know, a little Italian T-shirt, white T-shirt, mm-hmm. and ripped up blue jeans, and a little gut hanging over his butt. It was like really quite remarkable, quite an animal, you know, in a really great way.
Did you find it a hard number to sing towards the middle portion of it?
Well, yes, it is difficult.
Well, towards the end it builds.
You build up stamina.
Mm-hmm.
It's very tiring. There's a lot of movement going on, a lot of energy expended, and then you have to come back out and sing 32 more bars. But once you build up the stamina, it's not so bad, and you feel quite good after the whole thing's over.
Do you feel that you've reached your peak as a dancer yet, or there's still a long way to go?
Oh, I hope not. I hope I never feel like I've reached the peak. No, I feel I'm getting stronger and stronger all the time.
You had recently done the 3,339th performance of A Chorus Line.
I think there's a couple 8s in there, but...
89th, excuse me.
It broke the record.
How did you find that?
Oh, boy, that was really amazing. That was a really, really great thing. We had... I think there were about 300 people there, 300 or 400 people.
We did an interview with Kelly Bishop last week, and she said when she came to the first rehearsal, she was awed by how many jobs had come out of that show.
Yeah. It was great. So many people there, and so much positive energy there. It wasn't, I didn't see any cattiness. I didn't see any bad feelings or anything. It was such a good thing. Everybody was so thrilled to be there and so happy for the show and so happy that they were there and being a part of it. It's such a wonderful thing that nobody really had time for anything negative. Nothing was important like that. It was just all for the good and all for the show and the show's message, and just to have a great party with old friends from years before.
Well, Bebe, our time is up.
Okay.
I thank you for stopping by,
and
best of luck with your marriage and with the road to Hollywood. This is Rian Keating, and you've been watching Spotlight with guest Bebe Neuwirth. We can be seen Tuesday evenings at 8:30 on Channel D, and again Saturday mornings at 11:30 on Channel C. If you have any comments or suggestions, or if you would like to receive our program guide, you can write to myself in care of Perot Productions, 640 10th Avenue, New York, New York, 10036. Until next week, this is Rian Keating.